What's up, Minibugs and Elestriad faithful? We're back, and we are probably a little bit too far back. We have 3 casters here today who have been inside of the tank for what to be known as the best deck of the format, and that's Bears.
Hell yeah!
This past premiere, Justin, Cards and Coffee, of course, Coder and myself have been in the Bear Den trying to find something that feels good, and we came up with this list. So this just kind of for preference here, or for reference here. So Justin made it converted into top 8 with this list. I made 12th place, and then Kevin made
like
16th place.
14,
is that right?
15, something like that. We all
14,
made
15?
2 of us made top 16, and Justin made it to top 8 and lost out in Top Cut.
Yeah. So this deck is very real and very scary. But we have some changes that we might make and kind of go over some of the inclusions. We all 3 played the exact same deck, from what I understand.
Identical.
No changes.
Card for card.
No last minute Bean Soldier changes. So yeah. So Justin, I think let's start off with you on this one. Congratulations on the top 8. And oh my God, this deck is a killer. What was the idea with this deck?
The lore.
So yeah, the lore of this deck. So leading up into the tournament, I had been testing a bunch of different things, and I had really been enjoying the Bears, and probably there was like 3 or 4 different variants that I had been messing with. But at the end of the day, whatever variant it was, very quickly we realized that just obviously if you can get to the Majursa combo, it's just very ignorant, and any deck in the format is going to either lose on the spot or like better specifically have the runes to deal with it, or they're going to lose on the spot. Eventually it kind of made it to where I was like starting to include Narpoons in a more standard bear list because I just wanted to see the combo. Late night testing with Kevin kind of came to the point where we were getting to the point where we figured there's a lot of auto win buttons in the game, and might as well just lean really hard into this one.
Bro,
and,
Justin, you're putting it so lightly, bro. Oh my God. We were testing at 2 a.m, and every time I'm like, I'm winning this game. I'm winning this game. I'm winning this game. And you go, Ursa Den Hibernation. And I'm like, fuck, I lose every time. And then it resulted in a classic Coder crash out. And then Justin and I were just like memeing around like, what if we turbo this, put in some Nectar of the Gods and all this stuff, and all of a sudden, this baby was born.
It kind of evolved into something within it took like 30 minutes to build a rough draft. Mm-hmm. And again, mind you, this is like the day before the tournament.
Yeah.
And it took maybe 2 hours to realize how real this actually was. Yeah. And we didn't want to believe it. And even Kevin was like, this better break, this better be horrible, because I do not want this to be real.
Yeah.
This sounds so ignorant and frustrating. And we realized very quick it was very real and needed some refining. And even now with the build that we came into, again, that's with a day and a half of like trying to fine tune it last minute. And so we already know there's some changes we could make. But yeah, this deck is definitely very ignorant.
Yeah, the big idea specifically with it was that, you know, we've established that the bear deck was just okay, but it was really OP when it resolved the Majursa combo. And so we just figured, what if we just remove all the mid stuff and just put in only what you need for the Majursa combo, and then just try to turbo it out, put in everything that gets you to it. Because, and I've posted this on Twitter, I've been vocal about it. I feel like the game is in a point where there's a lot of auto win buttons that just like the moment you reach it, you put yourself so far ahead that if you resolve it at the right time, you just completely outright win the game. And that was the theory behind this deck. And if we want to get into the cards immediately, like I said, we toned down the bear engine. So instead of playing with the Ursirs and stuff, we're only playing 3 Ursicle, 1 Majursa, and we're pairing it with 3 Hibernation and 2 of the Ursa Den. And that is it. This is the entire bear package we're playing, because this is all you need to get to the Majursa. The idea is that if you have the Den or the Hibernation plus Ursicle gets you the other piece, and then this lets you, pull out the Majursa. And the only counterplay to this, and this was why I say I was crashing out, was because I was like, there's no counterplay to this. There's no combination of cards that you can have that like beats this, with the exception of exactly preemptively Gorgon's Gazing the Ursicle, or holding the Gorgon's Gaze for the Majursa, where at that point I still stick in 8-13, so it's still very strong. So Gaze isn't even that crazy into this. Or exactly like the Pandora's box for the Ursa Den, or I guess you could also like have the spoiled fruit for the hibernation, but most people really weren't on that. So I guess the card that we're really afraid of that stops this is Pandora's box, which is typically in people's side decks, not in main. So game one, we basically had free reign to run this out every single time.
There's a lot of times too, because this deck digs and deck thins so much, where I'll have multiple hibernations in my hand already. Sometimes I just throw the Ursicle out there to bait that Gorgon's Gaze, because a lot of players will catch on to like, oh, this actually helps to Gorgon's this, because put them on better, have the combo piece. And again, it checks the Gorgons, and then you're like, cool, I had the combo anyway. Even though my Ursicle can't swing, I'm still going to hit the rest of your cards and punch for my big boss monster. And it's really crazy.
So inside of the Swiss rounds, I think it was round 3 or 4, I did play against a player who did spoiled fruit twice on my hibernations.
Wow.
And it was like fine. It's like, okay, that's unfortunate. But that also meant the 2 back row weren't really real for anything else, which, you know, kind of get into like the supplemental engine later. But the one time where it did come up, as far as counterplay goes, was in probably the round that mattered the most against Spicy Sausage. So, you know, multiple time Elestrals champion. Shouts to Spicy.
My goat.
The game
Love
3,
Spicy.
it was Lavalith after I did the Ignectar combo, set 1. And I'm like, okay, I think I'm good as long as that card's Gorgon's Gaze, fine. But if this card's Pandora's Box, I lose on the spot. Shocker, I get to the Ursa Den, I go, Ursa Den effect, I go, disenchants cost, right? I'm like, oh no.
Oh no.
Yeah, Pandora's Box is really strong against this deck, and we knew that coming into it, and we do compensate for that in the side, which we'll go over later.
Yes.
And I will say this, though, Pandora's Box is what kicked me out of the tournament. It came down to game 3 against Adam. Shout outs to him. It was a great match. It came down to a very grindy game 3. At the start of game 3, I had to mulligan and throw 2 Frost Spirits in the deck, which, by the way, by mulliganing, you make your bear combo live turn 1.
Yeah, you turn this on immediately.
I opened the bear combo going second, and they opened Werepup plus a back row. And in my head, I said, well, you drew 5 cards in your 40-card deck. The odds of that last back row being specifically Pandora's Box is 20% at best. So in my head, they shotgun the full moon right away because I'm a frost deck, so they don't want to get cryo, so it makes sense. So basically, if this bear combo resolves, I just won the game and am going to top 4. And if it's Pandora's Box, it's going to be a super grindy game from here because they've already established Lycovoid. And they had it. I put them on Better Have It. They had it. You know, it happens.
Be like that sometimes.
And again, it does be like that sometimes for sure. And again, it could have easily gone the other way where it could have just been something irrelevant. And because it was crazy, because even in that instance, it played around Gorgon's Gaze because I had multiple pieces in my hand already. Yeah. So even the Gorgons on the Ursicle didn't matter. Yeah, you know, that's just how this game is. And like I said, we'll get over it in the side. We do have counters to Pandora's Box. It's just, at that moment, I had to make that judge call and saying, statistically, this is the best time to do this because the longer I wait, the more likely you are to see the Pandora's Box.
I think it really accentuates the concept that I was talking about of, like, you know, you have to play the auto win button cards, and the only cards that beat the auto win button cards are like the silver bullets that are specifically sided to beat the thing that gets you to your auto win button. And so, you know, he had it. It is what it is. But that doesn't necessarily mean that this deck isn't good. Like, this deck genuinely is freaking terrifying. The amount of people I played against during the tournament that assumed this was like standard bears and stuff, and then once they realize that I'm playing cards that bears doesn't typically play, they're like, what the fuck am I playing against right now? So the bear package
so many moments
really
like
kicked
that.
ass. Like, it genuinely really kicked ass.
Yeah.
And I will say this also, that there was a lot of games where my den did get Pandora's Boxed and I still won.
Yeah.
It's like, this isn't like a glass cannon deck that rides or dies on resolving den. It's just the fact that this deck can get to it, and that's what makes it so ignorant. But this deck has a really good mid-game, provided, you know, you see some guys.
It has very good supplementary engines, and one of those really good supplementary engines. And this started off as a joke, started off as a meme, but it worked really well. We played 1 OG Ignectar with 2 of the new Ignectar. Now, specifically, if you don't know what the new Ignectar does, it searches you Nectar of the Gods when you cast it. This includes if it's special cast off of the effect of OG Ignectar, because if you normal cast this, you get to special cast 2 Ignectars from your hand or deck. So the idea here, specifically with this engine, is that Nectar of the Gods achieved two things that we wanted the deck to be able to do. We wanted the deck to be able to turn on bear combo quickly, which Nectar of the Gods does. You just pay 2 frost for it, and then you have 2 frost and gray for the hibernation. And we wanted to turbo the bear button, the bear auto win button. So the idea of this was, initially Justin was just playing 3 of the new Ignectar to be like, oh, well, you cast one of this, you search the Nectar, and then you +2. It's kind of nice. But the idea that I had was, what if we just played one of the OG? Because realistically, drawing these later is like fine. This one is specifically really broken on exactly turn 1, because then you don't have to skip a battle phase, because it skips the battle phase of the current turn. I know the text on the card currently on the screen says otherwise. The updated text of this is that you skip the battle phase, your battle phase of this turn, not your next battle phase. So if you do this on the first turn of the game, you don't have to skip any battle phase. So you go Ignectar, and this is the God card. If you open this game 1, or like going first, I mean, you go Ignectar into the 2 other Ignectars, search double Nog, you double Nog for 4 frost. This turns on your Cryoling engine, which is what we played. We were then your 1 spirit off from your Cryoling just popping into a Kyrovern, and you go +6 in terms of cards, because you get these 2+, and then you search these and you draw 4. You just go mad plus for the cost of like 5 spirits, technically 7 with the Ignectars on the board. But the additional thing that this allows you to do is that it also turns on either a turn 2 cast of a Lavalith by ascending over one of your Ignectars, or you could even just go straight into the Majursa if you hard drew it, which realistically, going into Majursa that early might not be very good, but sometimes it's a play that you want to make. And then the Lavalith, just being able to like hard ascend over it, start popping a back row and having a 6 on board after drawing 4 to 6 cards is just really insane. So this engine I thought was really, really crazy. And when you got it off, it just gives you so much advantage. Not a single time I've resolved this that I didn't immediately win that game.
Like with Lavalith, just the kind of auto included since we're playing the fire spirits. But a card that's at 1 you'd think wouldn't come up that much, but with how much this deck draws and searches and deck thins, like seeing Lavalith happens really frequently.
Like this is 6 draw cards. This is 6 draw cards in the entire deck. You're playing 3 hibernation, which draws you 1, 3 nectar of the gods, which draws you 2. Like, you are drawing so many cards in this deck, you know?
Yeah, I was trying to explain the deck to some people who they're like Yu-Gi-Oh players that kind of barely dabble in Elestrals, and I said, what if I told you this deck had, 9 Stratoses, 3 of which search for our 3 copies of Pot of Greed, and it's just a 2-card combo to like whiteboard.
Yeah.
They're like, that sounds ignorant. I'm like,
it is very ignorant. I think moving forward, this engine has a lot more utility than people give it credit for, not just for this deck, but for other decks too. Like, genuinely, this was an underexplored engine that the only reason we played it was specifically because when we were like meme building this deck at 2:30 in the morning, Justin was like, oh, like, let's play Nog. Oh, why don't we play the guy that searches Nog? And I was like, hold up, wait a minute, you're cooking. And it worked. It worked really well.
One hot take on it, I don't love the old OG Ignectar. I will say I'm kind of on more of the wavelength of the 3 new Ignectar, unless we're playing something like a Kinleo, which you can definitely do in this deck if you wanted to do some more fire shenanigans. The awkward spirit management of the 1 Ignectar plus the new 2 Ignectars does make it to where sometimes you have to like kind of manipulate your underworld in such a way where you do now have the Den Ursa Den combo if you don't see enough like healing, hibernation, or the Ambrosias early on. Though this engine is super flexible, though, I'll say that. Like, if you go into the OG Ignectar, you draw 2 Nog. If you don't see like a Lavalith or something off the top where you can use the fire spirits, you could just use the 2 Ignectar or like one of the Ignectars for the Nogs. It is a really flexible engine that is really strong. I definitely underrated it myself, and I did think they were just completely joking whenever I saw it initially, but it's sick.
It felt like a joke at first. The really cool thing, like you're saying about using the Ignectars for the Nog, is you can cast OG Ignectar, get 2 of these, and then get the 2 Nogs. And then if you're playing against a deck like Bears or whatever, you're afraid of an Ursa, you're afraid of a Viscerus. If you saw that like in game 1 or game 2 or something, let's say it's a game 2, game 3 scenario, you can always Nog off the guys on your board. So this engine, very, very strong. And like I said, every time I drew OG Ignectar, I won. This card was the God card. We made the joke. We were like, this is the God card. This card is freaking insane. Genuinely crazy.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say about the engine is that it does, when you'll see the spear map that we're playing, it'll be a little confusing to go, okay, if you use 3 of the fire spirits, how do you resolve bear combo? But you actually don't mind it because all you need is 3 Fire Spirits in your Spirit deck at all time because you need them for Majursa, because you don't need to properly enchant your stadium. You never have to.
Correct.
Because the Hibernation can grab the Frost or Fire that you've used back onto it.
Yeah.
So even by going through those 3, you'll still have 3 in the Spirit deck at all time, and that's all you really need. So don't be afraid to misenchant that stadium.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. And then in terms of consistency cards, like we said, we're playing 3 Narpoon. And the reason why we're on the 3 Narpoon is specifically because the Narpoon gets you to the Ursicle, which I know it sounds weird to be like, I'm searching the searcher, but realistically speaking, if you have the Hibernation or the Den in hand already, you go Narpoon, search Ursicle, and then this basically threatens Bear combo on the next turn, unless they have exactly Gorgon's Gaze to stop the Ursicle, or again Pandora's Box for the Den. But if you do this, you put like a 4 on board, which is like a very respectable stat line, and then you just have this ready to go on the next turn. So if they don't have a response for Bear combo, and they have like a guy 2 back row, and you go, okay, bet, Ursicle, does this pass? And if they go, yeah, you go, I'd bet. Your back row's blown up, your guy dies, no problem. So Narpoon searching for a searcher feels slow, but Ursicle isn't just a searcher anymore. It is the playmaker that allows you to go into the Bear combo the moment you resolve it. So the Narpoon is very good, but the Narpoon also searches you the Cryoling package, which we played 3 Cryoling, and we also played 2 of the Kyrovern. So the idea here was specifically that we wanted a supplementary engine that's able to put a lot of pressure on the board on top of the Bear combo. So like we said, this deck doesn't live or die by the Bear combo. There are games that I've won, that Justin won, that Swole won, without even essentially playing with the Bear cards. The Cryoling Kyrovern package really just applies a ton of pressure on the opponent and basically tells them, hey, every time I normal cast moving forward, a 7 is popping out on the board. Are you able to deal with this? And a lot of times the answer is no. And if they can't deal with this, then, you know, especially the fact that you can water enchant this, tsunamis die and stuff like that, this feels horrible to shield because it just turns the Cryoling back on again. The Kyrovern just lets you play through a ton of back row and put on a lot of pressure really quickly, which in tandem with the Bear combo allows you to just basically rush your opponent so quickly that they don't have time to get back into the game.
Yeah, there was a lot of times where I would stick Bear combo, pop cards, do a big tempo swing, and then on their next turn they'd like throw out a guy and set some more back row, and they're like, I just gotta shield that big bear and everything will be fine. And then you just stick Cryoling into Cryoburn that's tsunami immune, and they're like, well, that's even annoying too. So now what do I do? And it's just like, okay, are you really gonna shield that bear now for 4 damage to yourself and then still have to deal with a 7/4 that's tsunami immune constantly? And that's the one thing too, I don't know if you guys have noticed when you were playing, this deck felt so good into tsunamis specifically.
Tsunami never matters.
The only time tsunami ever comes up is when you hit it with your Majursa. Yeah. But other than that, it's just like, you really don't care.
Yeah, it's like bet tournament Majursa, 13 defense to defense, no problem. Yeah.
Yeah, this deck plays, I think, really well into every counter rune that isn't specifically, again, Pandora's, or even like PTA can be kind of weird if you shotgun your combo a little bit too early, but that's more of a desperation play. Yeah. But every other counter rune, this deck, like shield, okay, well now I have a Kyrovern and the Majursa out. You're probably taking 5 damage this turn minimum. And then the like Gorgon's Gaze, you're like, fine, you can Gorgon's Gaze the Cryoling. Now the next turn, my Bear combo is live. Very resilient to pretty much everything that isn't specifically, again, Pandora's or maybe Altar. But Altar is like just Tsunami. Your Bear being a 13 defense came up a lot for me. It was like, oh, I can't hit this thing with any, like I can't double Zeus, I can't Argo. Very, very strong.
Yeah. The additional thing too with the Narpoon is we are also playing 1 extra target, which is the Frostics. We are playing 1 of this just to have the functionality is being able to do the Cryoling Kyrovern combo where you go like Cryoling into Kyrovern and Frostics back to Cryoling, make a second Kyrovern, so you push 2 of these out in the same turn. Being able to do that after you stick a Majursa, wipe the board, and then put them on, like you said, they're sitting on a shield, and they're like, okay, I'll shield this bear and I'm good. 1 Kyrovern is annoying, 2 is game ending, you know?
This deck has a lot of really good tools, and at face value, it looks very expensive to play, and it definitely is. You're very constantly playing between like 4 to 10 spirits after a couple of turns. But the thing is the pressure you put on your opponent makes them have to play very expensively if they don't have specific cards to keep them around. and you'll realize after turn 2 or turn 3, all of a sudden the spirits are stabilized and you guys are even, but you still have the big guys hanging around. Getting out the gate can look very scary and very low, but then all of a sudden you're just chilling at like 5 spirits for the rest of the game,
and you're swinging them for 4 every turn.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. You'll notice though, the guy count fairly low. You know what I mean? Because I don't know if you guys count Lavalith and Majursa and the Cryoverns as guys. I think we had something like 12 normal casts. It's the 3 Narpoons, the 3 Cryolings, the 3 Ursicles, and the 3 Ignectars are our only real normal casts. And so Justin and I were kind of going back and forth between a couple of cards when we were building the night before. And we basically had room to fit one guy. And there was a time where we had considered this should be Polzer. And I know Justin, during the tournament, a couple of times was like, bro, I wish that was Polzer, because we wanted something that was searchable off the Narpoon that was good in a late game scenario, because late game, the bear engine just isn't something that you really get to play with because you're too low on spirits to do anything with. But we did settle on playing the 1 Galaxea Champ. And I know 1 feels weird. We did side the other 2 Galaxea Champs. So this was basically the fact that we wanted to play the Galaxea Champ to some extent in the main/side. And we just decided, okay, we need 1 more slot for a guy in the main. We'll main the 1, side the other 2, because post-side, a lot of times, we did end up with the 3 Galaxea Champs in the main deck. But this was just in our main from the get-go. Honestly, it came up. This card is just overall very good. I think this needs no explanation. But this was just the 1 extra guy that we played. Do you still think this was correct, Justin, or would you have preferred Polzer?
Like I said, there was a couple of times where Polzer would have been nice, but Galaxea came up for me a lot more than Polzer did throughout the tournament. And I personally would even consider going up to 2, because most of the times it does come in post-side, especially because we side out some engine stuff. But it really fits on theme with what the deck's trying to do as well. While, like, obviously, like, swapping your Majursa stats is, like, crazy.
Broken.
It's kind of ignorant. But it doesn't really help with the Cryoverns, because now they're 4s. The caveat is this is another tsunami immune guy that outs stuff like rabbits and whatnot.
Beats
but
Argo
also,
very well.
It's a card. Yeah, beats Argo very well. And it is like a Gorgon's Gaze magnet, which is really good at pushing your Ursicles through. There was a lot of times where I would have bear combo, and I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to run this Galaxea, because if either this is going to clear their guy for free, or they're going to interact with it, and that interaction's not going to be for me or be there for me next turn. And so I really liked it. And in the mid to late game, when you're running low on guys, this is just a good playable guy in a low grind game, because that's what this deck turns into. Is either you blow them out with the combo and the game's over in the first couple of turns, or you're playing like Kyrovern control, and Galaxea just fits into that game plan very well.
Hell yeah.
Agreed.
And then after this is just the standard stuff, right? We played 3 Ambrosia, which initially we didn't play 3 Ambrosia. We were kind of on the fence about it, because we were like, okay, well, this deck wants to play very quickly and all this stuff. Do we really need this? But then Justin was playing with it, and like we said, you pay a lot of spirits very early on. So having the Ambrosias to kind of fix your spirit deck to tailor for what game plan you're trying to go with, like maybe you need more fires to go back into the bear combo if you drew it late or something like that. You get to do that with the Ambrosias, or sometimes you just need to heal to be able to cast some more counter runes and stuff like that. So Ambrosia, kind of a no-brainer. We played 3 Ambrosia, obviously we played 3 Gorgon's Gaze, we played 3 Shield of Achilles, 3 Tsunami, and we played 2 Poison Tipped Arrow as our counter rune lineup. This is just super standard. The PTAs came out going second in favor of playing a couple of more tailored side deck options, and then going first. We typically would side in the third, right, Justin? I sided in the third a ton during the tournament.
It kind of depended on the matchup, but I was very frequent, because the thing is too that you don't always open Nog, and you don't always open your Ignectars, and so you really are just trying to get those Frosts online, not only for your bear combo but for your Crylings as well. Just setting PTA makes bear combo live, so like it just makes sense to be playing a bunch of counter runes as well, because they just get your deck going as well.
That's the main deck. Easy peasy, standard stuff with the counter runes, at least. The rest of the deck, not so standard. We'll talk about the spirit ratios. The spirit ratios felt, I'll be real, perfect. I had 0 complaints about it the entire tournament. So it was 9 of the frost spirit, and then 6 of the fire spirit, and 5 of the water spirit. And the reason why this ratio looks a little off is specifically because with 6 Fire Spirits, if you look at the Ignectar combo, right? Let's say you go OG Ignectar, you cast the Ignectar, cast the other 2. That's 3 Fire Spirits out of the way. That leaves you with 3, and as we know, you need 4 Fire Spirits in order to do the bear combo. But the reality of it is that you actually only need 3, because when you play out your Ursa Den, you can cast out the Ursa Den using only Frost Spirits. You like misenchant it with 2 Frost, and then when you Hibernation, you get to put back one of the fires that was under your Ignectar, because obviously it's going to get outed at some point. You get to put back one of the fires that was under your Ignectar under this with a Frost, and then it's properly enchanted. You get to use the effect and use the last 3 fires to run out the Majursa. And we don't play that many fire cards. I know that like the bear deck typically is seen as more of a fire deck than anything else. You don't play that many fire cards. The only other fire card you're playing in the deck, apart from the Den, the Majursa, and the Ignectars, is exactly Lavalith, and that's where the Ambrosias come in. If you draw the Lavalith late game or something like that, feel free to Ambrosia, get 2 Fire Spirits back if you absolutely need to cast it out, and then easy peasy, you get it done. Or you get to, stick an Ignectar, and then you only need the 1 extra Fire Spirit, and you're good to go. So the Fire Spirits felt really good. Water were kind of high on, but the logic with the high water count for the amount of water cards, because in our main deck, the only water cards we're playing is 3 Tsunami, 3 Narpoon, and the 1 Galaxea, which is 7. So typically for 7 water spirits worth of cost for cards in the main deck, you would want to play less than 5 water. But the reason why we're playing 5 is because we want to water enchant our Kyrovern, and because post side we were okay going as high as having 9 water cards in the deck, and 5 water spirits for 9 water cards felt really perfect. And then the 9 frost spirits, you just need a lot of these, because you need to be able to not only pop the Cryoling into a Kyrovern, but also have enough Frost Spirits that if you have 5 Frost Spirits in your Underworld, you have 4 left to go Cryoling into a Water Kyrovern, 2 for the Infrostics, and then go for the last Cryoling into Kyrovern with another Water. So this was the bare minimum that you needed in order to be able to do that combo, as well as, the Hibernation being able to heal you for Frost and stuff just made it so 9 was very versatile, in my opinion. So I felt like this spirit count was damn near perfect. And going off into the side, like I mentioned, we played the 2 extra copies of the Galaxea Champ. We also played 2 Eddies. And the idea here with the Eddies was that there were certain matchups that we felt the Galaxea Champ wasn't as good into as Eddie would be. And we were like, okay, we had 2 more spots in our side deck that we didn't really know what to do with. And we were like, we might as well play the versatile Eddie in case we play against those matchups where the Galaxy isn't as good. A good example of this would be like a standard bear deck, because this gets run over by Ursir, this does not. So the Eddie was something that we had considered for a matchup like that. We were kind of expecting to see a good amount of bears, and there actually was like more bears than we expected. There was like, I think something like 7 or 8 players that played bears. Like, this is good into Argo, this is also good into Argo, so like even into an Argo deck, this feels completely fine. Would you cut this moving forward? What do you guys think? Because I don't know, it felt like okay at best during the tournament.
I sided 1 in once.
Hell yeah.
But that was only because I needed another guy to put in.
Like, the Eddies didn't really come up, but I did feel comfortable having them in the side.
Yeah.
I think because very specifically this tournament had a ton of Argo representation, I never felt like I needed to put in the Eddies.
Yeah.
But again, because Eddie covers like some matchups that Galaxea Champ doesn't really cover, I think eventually, and if you're playing this, like net decking this in the future or whatever, it's probably fine to keep the Eddies in and have this same ratio if Argo is less prevalent.
Yeah.
But because Argo is everywhere, oof.
Yeah, I agree. But I'll say this: I played so much Fire Nexus during this tournament. I lost count of how many Fire Nexus decks I played.
There was a lot of people on it. Yeah.
Every one of them, I never sided Eddie in against them. It was just Galaxy. And
yeah.
The only Fire Nexus deck that I wound up like losing to was the Werepuff one in top 8. Kinleo is a very scary card, especially because you're putting a bunch of big dudes out there. Yeah. But I don't know, the deck was able to hang pretty well.
Yeah, agreed. No, but Eddie good, Galaxy good.
Yeah, good cards. Just overall kind of busted. Then obviously we're playing a Frost deck. Cryoblast is kind of a no-brainer. We paired this with the 1 Resting on Your Laurels for removal. This only ever came in against decks that either play like a Divine or something like that. Just decks that typically will put a lot of spirits on board. I put this into the Fire Artifact deck just because with the artifacts and shit, like it typically makes this live. And this also came in a good amount of times against those decks just to hit the Volcaries and things like that. This feels really good. Beat a Kinleo. Cryoblast overall, just versatile card. You know, a lot of people have cut it from main decks because I think there's a lot more decks that play around this card well. But if you're playing against a deck that does lose to this, put them in. It's a really good card in general.
Yeah, I think we were expecting more Frost this tournament too, just because of Josh and the Permalink stuff being a little more popular.
Yeah.
And like I didn't see any Frost decks at all.
Yeah, me either. And it's so funny because that was kind of like half the motivation for me wanting to play Bears originally, was because like I felt like a lot of people loved the Blizz deck, and then since Josh was able to do it with Blizz, it just made it to where more people would be like, oh, it's still possible to play my Blizz deck, and they'll show up with it. So the beautiful thing about the Bear combo is it, like, even the god board of Blizz plus a big dude plus Stadium gets cracked by the Bear combo specifically. Like, your Stadium clears theirs, Majursa clears the red. It's just like, it's beautiful how this deck plays into Blizz. But the only problem is Blizz can high roll you earlier before you see your combo. So it's definitely like a race to the finish in that matchup. But I just love that our combo beats their combo.
Yeah, the big thing with the Blizz matchup specifically, and this was the logic behind initially not wanting to play the Ambro, because we were like, oh, we'll build a deck the way we build Blizz, right? You're just like turboing, trying to get this out as quickly as possible, and winning as fast as you can. Against Blizz, that is still true. So against Blizz, I typically side out the Ambros because I want to put everything into this deck to basically see my combo before they can just high roll and kill me. And one of the cards that I do put in that is in the side deck for Blizz, and I sided against a couple of other things, they even won me a matchup during Swiss. I played 2 copies of Eruption in here. Well, we all played 2 copies of Eruption. I don't know about you guys. If it came up for you, it did come up for me. I double Eruption the guy for game. I think this card is genuinely very solid just in general, and not in a healthy way. I'll say it. I think this card is toxic as hell. I think the big issue with this card specifically is that it lets you rob games that you otherwise should not be winning. The game that I won where I double Eruptioned was a game where I had one in my opening hand, drew the second one really early, and I was on the back foot that entire game, and the whole game I just played for, can I make my opponent overextend to the point where 2 of these kills him? And I did. I put him in a situation where I was like, you have to extend to kill me right now. And I had the one counter rune to stop his extension, but I let him like go in, and then I go, and like he's like, he resolved the Sorlet champ, and he's like, oh, I'm gonna search, and I literally showed him these 2 in hand. I go, it doesn't matter, you're in battle phase, you can't Emerald anymore, you can't heal. I have 2 of this, and you're on 4 spirits. Sorry, buddy. You know.
Yeah, I think this card is very interesting in this deck because we are playing, again, the Fire Spirit, which is nice. For me, this didn't really come up except for once. I did cite it in twice, and I did see it twice, but the second time I saw it, I saw double copies of Eruption. I didn't need it. The first time it came up, it was more of like a deterrent. Like, they had enough spirits to shield my my Majursa, but not enough to where I could Eruption, put them down to 4 spirits, and they couldn't also handle, I think it was like a Narpoon or something that had like Stray on the field, to where I would still, if they shield the Majursa, I win regardless because it puts them on 0. And that was like the scenario that we were in.
Like,
and so for that reason, exactly, like we kind of walked them down. But Eruption was never a game ender for me. Still kind of comfortable having it in the side. And again, Fire Nexus and Fire stuff was everywhere, so didn't really ever truly come up except for a couple times in the tournament.
Yeah, it is a big thing that because there's a lot of Fire decks in the format that this card gets worse. But if you're playing against... Honestly, I put these in specifically because I was scared of Blizz and I wanted a way to just like... be like, oh, you did all your shenanigans and you're about to kill me, you're dead, sorry.
Yeah, and for me, since I didn't play any Blizz, it didn't really come up. I sided it in twice, saw it once, and the one time I saw it, I saw 2 of them very early, and they just sat in my hand the whole game, and I wound up losing that game, and they actually, I think they popped my back row with, like, I forget what it was, but they popped it, and it was a bluff set, the Eruption, and so they were like, oh, you play that card too? And so that was the only impact it had, was post side. Now they were scared.
It's a perfect bluff card, bro. It's fantastic.
I took it right out post side.
No, that's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, this card only really works as a jump scare, I find. Like, once they know you're on it, they can play around it fairly well. And then in terms of other counter runes, like I said, we played the 3rd Poison Tipped Arrow in the side, and we played 3 Pandora's Box. I think this card is kind of like a mandatory side deck card in the format right now. There's a lot of good things that this beats. This beats Argo very well. It beats the bear combo. Like, you know, like I said, you need to have the silver bullet for the auto win buttons, and the biggest auto win button in the game right now is probably the Majursa, and this just beats that. This says your den is gone, you lose all those spirits. It's a very favorable trade for you, so I think for that reason you have to have this card in your side right now.
I agree, and I think maybe 2 might be fine, especially with how much we deck thin, to be honest. And also you'll realize with this deck, you can only take so many cards in and out at a time without like ruining the ratios and the math of the deck. I only sided it in once, and it was literally, I sided it in once because I needed one more card to put in against spiders. And I was like, well, I'm going to throw a P-Box in because it hits Kite Might. Why not? And it came up. I drew it. And I was like, oh, hell
Did
yeah.
Did you P-Box a Kite Might? Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
God, yes. That must have felt real good. Damn.
Oh, yeah. My 4th copy of Gorgons for Kite Might.
And then we played one final card on the side, which actually is a card that I've been preaching as a problematic card for a very long time, and it came up a lot. It came up for all 3 of us on multiple occasions throughout the tournament. That card is Helios' Chariot Ride. So if you guys aren't familiar, you activate it during the draw phase, and for that entire turn, whether you do it in your draw phase or your opponent's draw phase, for that whole turn, your opponent cannot cast any runes. No stadiums, no counters, no invokes, none of them. And the reason why this card initially saw very little play is specifically because this feels like a cheaper Hurricane, but the big downside with this card is that they get to keep the counter runes that they have set. So if you're trying to make a big push play or something like that, you know, initially it was, I want my Viscerus to connect, or I want my Nabi into Doppelgator to connect. You could play something like this, but the issue is that they get to keep the counter runes to then stop you on a later turn, so it wasn't worth it because you're just kind of delaying them shielding your Doppelgator, and sometimes that can win you the game, but more often than not it didn't. But specifically in this deck, the Helios' Chariot Ride feels really good because most people are never setting more than 2 counter runes anyway because they fear the Hurricane, and because of that, you go Helios' Chariot Ride, they have 2 back row, maybe a guy or 2, and you just do this, turn off their back row, and then do the Majursa combo. Majursa clears their back row, so they lose it anyway, and then you now have your Majursa ready to clear their guys, and typically that is enough to be just like a game-ending push. The other thing that you can do with the Helios' Chariot Ride that's really cool is, let's say you don't need to use it on their turn in order to make sure your Majursa combo goes through, you can Helios' Chariot Ride on their turn so that they aren't able to cast out the cards that they typically would to out the Majursa, with the exception of something like Kindleo Boombat. And Kindleo, specifically, if they have no other banks already out, then Kindleo is also stopped by this because, you know, usually they have to go Kindleo plus Artifact or Kindleo plus Hephaestus to be able to out it. So the only card that really is scary into this is like Boombat. But otherwise, if you Helios' Chariot Ride them in an advantageous situation where you're probably winning next turn, you Helios Chariot Ride them on their turn, so they can't Earthquake you, they can't double Zeus you, they can't do any of that stuff in order to out your Majursa. So at that point, Helios' Chariot Ride ends up being a defensive card. Genuinely, every time this resolved, it just felt phenomenal. Genuinely.
My hot take is I honestly would rather have 3 of these things.
Oh, yeah.
I think that if we're going down to the side deck, it would be like either 1, if you are really ballsy, take out the PTAs, main deck the 2 Helios, or just take out 1 Pandora's Box and play 3 Helios. This thing was, I wish I saw it every match, and it was effectively like the perfect card for this deck.
Yeah, as you guys can hear, Swole is constructing the perfect side deck for this deck right now.
Yeah, quite legitimately, there's carpet bombings happening outside of my.
Yeah, he literally hired the contractor. He got the contractor to come up, and he's like, okay, I need you to build me a deck. No, not in my backyard. Build it right here with these cards.
Yeah, legitimately. No, it's a run outside. It's awesome.
But yeah, so that's it for the deck. You know, honestly, I think that we cooked up something really cool. I think it's unique. I think a lot of people didn't expect us to be running what we were running. And shout outs to me and Justin having the X of 25 Majursas. I have number 1. He has number 3. If he had 2 of them in his deck, because I know Swole swears by the double Majursa, he would have won. He would have won the whole thing with double Majursa, I believe.
That's what I'm saying. Now this deck is sick. I do think that like there's enough here to where, again, reiterating on the strategy, you're trying to like run it back again. I unfortunately think this is like a very serious threat.
Yep.
That,
it's a real deck. It is very real. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's just gimmicks. Part of that is because of its supplemental stuff, but the bear stuff is wild.
Crazy
so
good.
Yeah. No, I'm just like I said, with a day and a half of theory on this and realizing how strong it was, it just goes to show that there's so much more to this and refinement that it can have. And whether or not it sticks around in the format or becomes a real big problem, I guess time will tell, obviously. But I'm just happy. Again, thank you guys. Like, if I have a wacky idea, just to be like, no, this might work.
Dude, I love the Justin wacky ideas, bro. I'm gonna be so real. I've said it time and time again. If Justin comes up with a deck and he goes, guys, I think this could work, most people go, no, he's crazy. And I go, hold up, silence. Justin is talking.
Legitimately. It's so funny. This is the Unkelith theory.
Yeah.
Is that back with Daybreak? I think it was Justin versus like a Super Insane or something. We were like, well, what's going on here? And Justin would go like Arcolith and then get like shielded. Like, okay, Arcolith again the next turn. I'm like, this is kind of sick. Everyone's like, oh, our Unk's kind of bad. I'm like, oh, no. Not from what I saw, baby. I mean,
Arcolith goes kind of crazy. But with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the deck profile, and pick up your Majursas, the GOAT. And if you guys are interested in seeing a couple of other topping deck lists, our good buddy Josh of the Elestrals as well, the Beanster himself, he got second place at this tournament, and his deck profile is probably going to be coming out very soon. So if you guys don't want to miss that, make sure you comment, like, and subscribe on this video. Let us know what you think of this bear deck. Is it too good? Is having an auto win button like this too strong in the game? What do you guys feel about the state of the Firestorm meta? We would love to hear. But with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video. Peace!